Hello there, it's Jaymz Bee. Welcome to my podcast or vodcast. It's a visual podcast every Friday. It's on YouTube. It's also at jaymzbee.ca. And if you're only catching the listings right now, you can go to my website or YouTube and see the interview coming up with Heather Lockhart. She has been running around Ontario making concerts and festivals and doing all kinds of things behind the scenes, as well as being a wonderful singer-songwriter. So we're going to get to her story in a bit. First, I want to thank the good people at Barbarian Steakhouse, and I want to congratulate them. They've been around since 1959, and they're still packing them in there. There's a reason. The food is good, the service is excellent, and don't take my word for it. Go now fast. 7 Elm Street, Barbarian Steakhouse. Also, barberfinancial.com if you have any financial needs or questions. Go to Captain Paul. Tell him I sent you. Tell him you heard about it on my podcast. He's a good friend of mine, and he'll help you with your finances. barberfinancial.com. And, of course, thank everyone at Patreon. People who donate on Patreon are like culture heroes to me. I do have events coming up. I always want to invite people to events, and whether you're in town or not, you can help me out. $5 a month goes a long way. It is in US, so you're giving me like $6.50 or something. Anyway, thank you to everyone who sponsors this, and now on to the listings. I want to start with Old Mill Toronto at the Homesmith Bar. The Homesmith Bar is a cozy little place, great food, really great bartenders, and great music. Here we go. Electric bass player Vaughn Meisner. He's heading a killer trio at the Homesmith Bar tonight. It's Harley Card on the guitar, Kevin Dempsey on the drums. Bring your appetite. And it's 7:30 to 10:30, no cover, $20 minimum, but that's easy. Have a couple drinks. Tomorrow night, Saturday at 7:30, same time, 2 great sax players, Alex Dean and Perry White. Love these guys as good friends and as great musicians. Wow, are they ever talented. And Mark Eisenman is on piano, Duncan Hopkins on bass. So 4 virtuosos in one concert, no cover. Huh? Yeah, well, that's how they roll at the Homesmith Bar. So check it out, oldmilltoronto.com for information over there. And may I say, you might want to get a room. I know the staycation thing is something I frown upon. You should go experience life and travel, but isn't it cool to go out for dinner, see a concert, and then just go up to a room? Yeah, so they have rooms, oldmilltoronto.com. Hughes Room Live, I can't believe what they're doing. Tonight, I mentioned this last week, Winter Garden Orchestra have a Midsummer Night's Theme. If you are a fan of Boardwalk Empire, Downton Abbey, those kind of shows, you're going to love 20s, 30s, 40s music. It's really beautiful. But what I'm really surprised about is that they are doing something no one's doing in the summer. They're doing an entire week of great guitar players. There's fingerstyle guitar. There's dobro master. Pasquale Grasso is joined by Alain Caron from UZEB. Like, this is heavy, heavy stuff. So check out HughesRoomLive.com. I can't believe what they're doing over there. Get yourself a ticket. Whatever kind of guitar playing you like, they got something there for you. This Monday, I have to tell you, it'll sell out quick, so get them now. Colin Linden is performing. The guy is so amazing. I'm trying to think of some of the things. Bob Dylan, Robert Plant, musical director of the TV show Nashville. I've seen him for years doing solo work, Blackie and the Rodeo Kings. He actually played with my band Look People on CBC just once. Anyway, amazing guy and so famous, and it's going to sell out. So get your tickets for Colin Linden this Monday, HughesRoomLive.com. And now let's get over to Jazz Bistro, where world music meets jazz music. Gareth Burgess is on the steel pans. It's an all-star band happening down there, and it's really fun, uplifting, perfect music for summer. Calabash tonight and tomorrow, Jazz Bistro. And coming up next week, Wednesday and Thursday, Laura Fernandez and the Don Nadarak Quintet. Laura Fernandez is a sweet girl from Jazz FM. She's had Cafe Latino for years, and we've traveled around together. She is so much fun. She's so lovely. And Don and his band, killer. It's going to be fun. Bob Bruff is there with his band on next Friday, Saturday. I'll tell you more about that next Friday. But all your listings at jazzbistro.ca. Be sure to make dinner reservations. Lula.ca. Okay, Havana Club Friday. I talk about this every week because doors are at 6:30, 7:30. There's a great band. This time it's Roberta Hunt Trio. She does that New Orleans vibe. So you get some New Orleans vibe with some great food and then Cuban dance music all night long. DJ and live band. Yanni Burrell is going to be there later tonight. So that's happening. There's always these salsa Saturdays, which is also really cool. And Thursday, Cajurina, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but they're from Brazil and they're coming to Toronto and they're playing there. So it's going to be packed, and always check lula.ca, make reservations ahead of time. My guest this week, Heather Lockhart. Now, I've known her for over 10 years. I met her when she started working at festivals, the Oshawa Jazz and Blues Festival. She worked at Jazz FM for a little bit. She takes contracts, she does a ton of work, and then she moves on. Kind of like Bill Bixby in The Incredible Hulk, except you would like her when she gets angry. No, she doesn't get angry. She just gets shit done. So let's talk to her about her music, about Einstein, about everything, okay? We're going to see Heather Lockhart right now.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great.
All right. So we've known each other a long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you questions as if I don't know anything about you.
All right.
All right. First of all, your early childhood, where did you learn to love music?
All by myself in the woods. I didn't grow up all by myself, obviously. I have two wonderful parents, and we lived in a super small place, a little hamlet in Ontario, less than 100 people. So not a lot to draw from as far as cultural things or a huge network of people, but there's something beautiful in a little tight-knit community and nature.
You'd know how to forage for mushrooms.
Oh yeah, I've done even led some survivalist hikes and things like that, so I'm all about nature.
Where did you discover music? How did you love music?
I would sing to myself, and I would make things musical all the time, mostly irritating my siblings or friends. But as I grew up and I got out into the world, I ended up in Oshawa somehow with no connection to the city, but when I got there, I met all of these really creative, artistic, musical people who took me in, and I just loved it and started swimming.
Was it roots and folk and blues music that caught you first?
Mostly, yeah. Like I on my own kind of discovered and fell in love with like Mississippi John Hurt kind of stuff, Tampa Red, that kind of thing. And I never really found other people that listened to it until I met a fella named Glenn Bensley who just cracked my world wide open musically, and he really kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and then we developed a band called the Lapdog Band. He was known as Glenn Lapdog Bensley, so kind of a joke. He was this tiny little Indian guy, and he, under the lights, looked like the devil's lapdog, they would say. So, so the band was called Lapdog Band. And it was kind of just like a fun party band. We'd play bars and a little bit of blues, little roots, little rock.
You turned into the Hokum Runners after that?
Yeah, so then we kind of branched out on our own, a little less partying, a little more on the road, some live recordings, things like that, and we were the Hokum Runners.
So when I met you, you were involved in the Oshawa Jazz and Blues Festival.
Yeah, so the city of Oshawa has so much amazing art and culture going on, great music. But it's a tough battle because the city has other focuses. So they dropped the Jazz and Blues Festival, and it broke a lot of hearts. So this awesome gal, Becky Choquette, stepped in, and she was like, I need a number two to help me out. So her and I just championed through, and we made a festival happen with no city funding. And it went really great. So great that the funding didn't continue the year after, but that's okay. We made our mark on the city, and it was really rewarding in that way.
I do remember in the second year you actually made a bunch of money because you kept your own beer sales.
Yeah, well, you kind of got to tweak things sometimes.
Oshawa beer sales.
You know, when it comes to the beer sales, that was a sure-in.
Did you have other experience before that? How do you go in and run a festival so quickly?
I think the naivety of not realizing how much it was going to take was one thing, but I've been doing events and things for a long time, so doing a lot of, showcase events and curating different things throughout the city for a long time. I had a pretty good gauge on what was out there, who my allies were, and it was a pretty fun experience because I already had those sort of tethers.
Right.
Yeah.
And what kind of other art events? You took over a building and turned it into an art place or something? What was that?
many years before I was in Oshawa, there was something called Space Invaders, where they would go into vacant spaces or spaces that would welcome art, and they had a night where there was sort of, it kind of by description would be similar to like Nuit Blanche kind of thing in Toronto, but smaller scale and more indoors than outdoors in Oshawa. And I was speaking to one of the guys who was putting this on years before, and kind of got the gears in my head turning. And when I spoke to some property managers that were looking after these empty spaces, they basically just said it's really hard to show people what the space could be. So they were sitting vacant for like years, some of them. And Oshawa's downtown had so many great artists, trying to find spaces that they couldn't afford. So I just sort of saw a need and started some conversations, and it was a little more complicated than that, but that's the basics of it. So Zal Press was the one guy who really was like, I like where you're going with this, let's do some research. We found other cities that were doing similar things in other countries and sort of took some of their template, used some of ours, and we started something called The Vault in Oshawa. So Will McGurk was another guy who played a huge role in it. There were probably about a dozen people who were really working hard to get it together. But basically, we took these empty storefronts that were just sitting. We paid the utilities, we paid whatever the expenses of the property manager were, and we basically just had a nice community space that we could use for, music lessons or painting or yoga or small
Pop-up art space.
Pop-up art space, and it was a huge success, so much so that all of the spaces that I had been involved with have all since been leased for a long time.
So you moved to Toronto, and for a little while, you were working next to me at Jazz FM in membership.
Yeah, so while I was still, wow, that was a commute, I'll tell you, but I loved it. I worked at Jazz FM for, I think I was hired for a 6-month contract, turned into a year, and I worked in membership. It was great. We basically were there to shake things up, and we did. So we had some of those, little blitz fundraisers on air, and one of my tasks was to grow the volunteer team, which I absolutely loved, because our city is filled with supportive people and amazing, brilliant people.
Yeah.
The volunteer team at Jazz FM when I was there was such a rad team, but it was a pretty small core team. There were about a dozen people who were consistently there. And when I left, we had a roster of about 300. So that was pretty great. And these are like, retired doctors and lawyers and like really brilliant people. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
What did you do after that? I need you to explain the Einstein project, the event that happened in Montreal.
So, I had some other little things in between, but I was looking for that really inspiring project. And actually, I don't know if you know this, but one of the volunteer team members is actually the one that referred me to the Einstein job. So the Albert Einstein Foundation was just getting started. And it was a branch off of Canadian Friends of Hebrew University. So the same CEO of Canadian Friends chapter was the founder of the Einstein Foundation. And the volunteer member worked for Canadian Friends of Hebrew University. She heard them talking about this need they had for this, person that they didn't think existed, that needed to have, event background, who, didn't mind getting a little sweat on their brow, who, had a background and whatever. So there were all of these things, and she piped up and said, I think I know this human you're looking for. Brought me in, we met, we clicked immediately, and their goal was basically, it was the centennial anniversary of the theory of relativity being published, and they wanted to celebrate the heck out of it. So they already had in the works this idea to make a 3D printed book. So initially it was going to be a sculpture of Einstein on a 3D printer by this really cool artist, Ron Arad. And he actually worked with them to change it to be a book so that 100 essays could be inside of the book. And the essays are from sort of inspiring visionaries from around the world. So they submitted these really amazing essays to inspire the next generation of Einsteins. And so they didn't want to stop there. They wanted to launch the book at an event. They wanted to bring these minds together in one place and kind of really feel it, make it a real thing. So that's what I did. I put on these series of events. They ended up being in Montreal. So we had, not to use the brand, but it was a TED Talk style sort of summit where we had some of these amazing minds speaking about the topics they wrote in their essays. So, I mean, these are people from like Chris Hadfield to Rick Hansen to, all these amazing people. So it was a pretty inspiring weekend. And then the event itself was initially, they were going to call it the Dinner of the Century. And I was like, no pressure, Dinner of the Century. But I mean, it's amazing when someone really gives you the freedom to just run with something and try it out. They liked that I was a little weird and a little out there and had a pretty vast list of contacts. So we had an awesome production company as well that brought everything to life. So we basically made the space like a blank slate, and you felt like you were in the space. So we had, it's so hard to explain without being there, but I kind of love that. I kind of love the people who were there, and there were about 800 people there. They were coming up after saying they hadn't seen anything like it before. But it was a combination of projectors and actors and music and amazing food and
piano player hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah. So I really loved that there were so many connections to space. Yeah.
Explain that.
We had a lot of connections to space. I mean, the theory of relativity is part of the reason that space travel is possible, right? So, I mean, when you walked in, we sort of made it feel like you were going through like a space star tunnel. And when you got to the end of that tunnel, I wanted like an anti-gravity feel. So everybody was on board. We had a piano player suspended from this huge warehouse ceiling, and we made sure he, used the restroom first because he was up there for like 2 hours just suspended playing music. It was pretty cool.
So the piano was also suspended from the ceiling.
The piano player, the piano, it was like, I don't know how the production company made that happen, but like, good job.
And wasn't there an Einstein book in outer space?
Yeah. So another thing that our team really was tasked with is get some media attention. So we had one team member that hooked up so that the Einstein Foundation could ring the NASDAQ bell one day. That was cool. I helped the marketing team break a Guinness World Record where we had the most Einstein, people dressed like Einstein in one place at one time at the Mars Center. That was super fun. But the one that I still sometimes can't believe, and I'll get you some pictures, maybe. But some of our contacts were people that worked at NASA. These were like amazing minds. And so, I mean, I see my network as my assets, like you should really value each other and allow each other to kind of do what they do. So NASA has the International Space Station's 3D printer, but it's normally just used for like tools so that you save like months of time sending things back and forth. And sometimes those tools get sent to different universities who can apply when they're finished with them or if they're just trying out a prototype. But this was the first time that they had ever had someone ask them if they could print a book in outer space. So they kind of linked us up with their Made in Space program, and I wrote like the essay submission of a lifetime. Our team kept rereading it and rewriting it, and I really wanted to, Einstein deserves to be in space. The theory of relativity, like I said, it's part of the reason that we are able to travel into outer space. So they made it happen, and we printed this prototype of the book in outer space. And then they FaceTimed us while they were printing it. Only for a little while. It took like 12 hours to print the thing. But it was pretty amazing. Our team was all huddled around this iPad watching something.
Them print in outer space.
In outer space. And then they shipped it, they ship it in these, I forget what it's, some kind of dragon something pod. And they ship it back. They shoot it back into our atmosphere, and NASA collects it, and then they mailed us the the thing from
So the book, the Einstein Foundation now has the Einstein book printed in outer space.
Isn't that amazing? That's like, sometimes I think about some of the things I've done and I'm like, that's kind of weird.
So what do you do after that?
I know, right?
Right. Do you have one? Do you have a big plan coming up? Something?
You know, I'm always open and looking for the next thing, but you know, I've been affiliated now for a while with this consulting company called Kin & Co. They're doing some pretty cool stuff.
What do they do?
It's consulting. Mostly they focus on organizational change, internal work culture. You know, so it's really pretty broad. Like it could be anything from
So it's beyond HR.
Oh yeah.
It's not that. Yeah.
Usually we come in and work with HR teams and things like that, but yeah, it's a pretty broad world, but I'm pretty excited to be in it. I mean, when I look back at things I've done a lot of organizational change, a lot of strategy alignment, a lot of different things like that. So it's nice to finally find a place where you can say, oh yeah, this is my little niche related to those things. So
how important is it to you to balance big projects and you know, money making projects with your art, with your music, and with what you want to say?
Yeah, I have a pretty easy time with it, I would say. I think I'm just keeping myself really open to all of it. And another thing that I think has made life a lot easier is I just drop all the hats, you know, all of the different modes that you go in, and I just show up as me everywhere. Whether I'm playing music and giving that to people, whether I'm coming in and analyzing something on a more corporate level, I bring me every time. So, you know, for better or for worse, I come as Heather Lockhart, and I bring what I have, and I give the same energy and attitude. Because the way I see it is, if I'm not doing something that I'm finding that same reward in, then I should step away. So if I'm there, I'm in. Like, I'm excited, I'm doing it, I want to be there.
How much do you think maybe your music has taken a back seat once in a while when certain projects come up?
It's happened from time to time, but right now I'm feeling pretty good about the way things are balanced. I think I just had to decide and communicate that. So whoever I work with, they just know if I'm there and I've showed up, I'm all in. And if I tell them I have this thing I need to be at, they know I'm out of there. There's no compromise for me. So
you're not sneaking around. You're putting it out there.
No, I'm totally open and out there about it. But sometimes it's funny because, for example, when I worked at Jazz FM, I was young and I was hungry to make my mark on the world, and I had just come off of, you know, a few other projects that got my juices flowing, and it became really all-encompassing. So I was in the music industry in one regard, but stepping so far away, and it was really eye-opening for me. So I made sure not to do that moving forward.
So working right now on new music, who are you working with? What's coming up?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I don't want to spill too many beans out, but I've been having a lot of fun working with Eric St. Laurent's been helping me with some songwriting and some development towards an album. And Attila Fioche has been helping me produce some live shows and different curated playlists and things like that. And obviously Tiki Collective, I'm on the Muse album and getting involved with as many live shows with that as I can. And so coming up on the radar is definitely a blues album. So, you know, I love jazz, I love folk, I love rock. And when I think about sort of where it all lands, I normally try and just let other people label it, because it's like similar to my work life. I don't know what title it is. I just let other people figure that out. But I know that I feel the blues in me. I mean, I would like to think that when I sing, it's something that people can pick up on. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to hear your next record.
Me too.
And I can't wait to see your next project, whatever that may be.
Yeah, so I'm in the talks with some events people that want to work on some things, and we'll see. So I'm always looking for different things, you know, whether it's curating events or, you know, executive coaching or, you know, projects big and small. If I get excited about it, I'm going to give it, like, everything. Yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait to see you in concert.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Heather Lockhart. Wow. Okay, I have a feeling if somebody wants to start a festival, you might want to give her a call. I can't wait to hear her next record. Join me next week when somebody with a great big brain, a great big heart, and a whole lot of talent is coming in here. Bobby Wiseman. It's going to be a long interview because we have a lot to go over. We love a lot of the same things. And I'm going to try to find out some things about him I never knew before. So join me next Friday for Bobby Wiseman, and join me every Friday for the Jaymz Bee Podcast. Thank you. Bye.